Mitch, I'm excited about this podcast, dude, because we've never had anybody on that's played college basketball before. And there's so many questions. I mean, college sports right now is like the Wild West, and there's so many things we can talk about. And, dude, you probably have some great insight. You have the most games played in KU basketball history and the most points. What was it? No, most wins.
Ninth in most blocked shots or something like that, right?
Yeah. No, it was a wild experience. When I committed to KU, I had no idea that I would end up being there for that long. I don't think anybody did with the extra season from COVID.
I got you.
The extra season from COVID, the redshirting my senior year of college. Like, I think those were some things that allowed me to kind of sit back and realize how blessed I was to be able to have that experience. And yeah, like you guys said, 6 years of college, one national championship, a bunch of rings, like that's stuff that you just don't find every day. Like, I think people that are KU fans, we get sometimes a little bit spoiled because they win a lot, but like that's not something that other people get to experience. And I'm so thankful that I was able to be a part of it.
And do you think with the you mentioned COVID, it's like will it ever be able to be repeated like that again? Like, is your record going to be untouchable for a KU basketball player to this point?
I think so. Who knows? Like we would have thought that maybe COVID was an impossible thing before it happened, and then it happened, and now we have guys that are playing for 6-7 years in college. I was talking to a guy yesterday that is going on his 7th year of college. I'm like, oh,
is he becoming a doctor?
I had to say, I'm like, dude,
is his name Van Wilder?
No, yeah. Is he collecting pension from that school? But like that's one of those things where I'm like, dude, like who would have thought that you were gonna have? It's almost like, I feel bad saying this, but like career college athletes. Like, I can't really talk any crap about it because I was one of them, but it's just so cool to see guys that be able to further their education. And there's a lot of guys that are getting master's degrees out of it. Like, I got my master's degree out of it, which was something that has been very beneficial for me. So I think it's obviously COVID was a terrible thing. It sucked. That time sucked, but there are some things that are coming out of it that I think are going to be beneficial for athletes.
And you were born in Kansas City, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you moved to Arizona.
Yep.
So was your ultimate goal to play at KU because your family grew up around here? And your family is like big KU fans just from the beginning?
Yeah, I had some family members that ended up going to KU. I had a cousin that played on the football team, and then I had some other family members that just went to KU. So it had always kind of been KU. Like, that was my dream school. And growing up, I never really thought it was like a possibility. And I ended up committing to a different college my sophomore year of high school. I ended up committing to New Mexico, thinking like, oh, this is a pretty high level. I get to play against the best of the best. And then after they had a coaching change, so I ended up decommitting from there and seeing what my options were. And I had just come off a really good summer, so I was allowed to talk to some of the higher level, like the Kansases, the Michigan States, like. And then I realized, like, after getting that call that you talked about earlier, that voicemail from Coach Self, that like, hey, this is a real possibility, and you're going to be able to go play at the highest level. And that was kind of my goal. I didn't want to have any what ifs. I didn't want to have I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I wanted to go do it at the highest level.
You had a conversation with Tom Izzo, you mentioned, right? You said Michigan State.
Yeah, it was more of like the assistants type things.
Sure.
So when you're getting recruited, like, it's more of the assistants that'll reach out to you and whatnot, and they'll see
they'll have like a region. Is that correct for our listeners, just to give them a better insight?
They'll have like a region that each assistant's in charge of, and you'll talk to them. I hadn't talked to them in super detail, but it was just a little bit more of an example. But they'll call you, gauge your interest.
But the Bill Self call, right? Why Bill Self? Why did he call over the assistants in this scenario?
I had talked to the assistants. Coach Rob was the guy that was in charge of recruiting me. I think it's more of like a sales idea. There's a coach that goes out there and gauges your interest, and then there's a Coach Self that you call in that is the closer.
The closer.
Like, Coach Self is definitely a closer. Like, he knows how to make you feel like you've known him your entire life. He's your best friend, and he gets the job done. And there's like, I didn't even answer the phone call the first time, and I felt like listening to the voicemail. I was like, "Yep, this is it. Thanks everybody else. I'm going to Kansas." Obviously, I couldn't say that to him when I talked to him the first time. I had to be like, "Oh, like,
let me think about it."
Yeah, I'll talk to my family and whatnot. And I hung up the phone and played the Dream On video with my parents we watched a Dream On video on YouTube like 10 different times.
Aerosmith Dream On?
Yes.
Or was it the Eminem version of Dream
Aerosmith
On?
Dream On KU basketball video.
Yeah, it's a cut up.
Oh, hell yeah.
Highlights.
We watched that video like 10 times in a row, and I was just sitting there standing in front of our TV in the living room like, yeah, I'm definitely going there. There's absolutely no way I don't go there.
That's so awesome.
So give like our listeners an idea of like what kind of, because you said you had a good senior year, right? Mm-hmm. Like what kind of stats for a senior year is like, will get you recruited by KU?
I think it just depends on the level you're at. Whereas like I was at a smaller, we played at the highest high school level in Arizona.
So highly competitive.
Yeah, highly competitive. There's guys out there that are NBA players. You got like Marvin Bagley's, Marcus Howard, very high level guys. But I think if you're playing on like a super high level club or high school team, you don't have to average giant numbers. It's more of a the coach will go out there and see your potential. They see your work ethic. They can talk to the people that are around you. I know it's very cliche, but someone's always watching. That's something that I was taught being a high school basketball player, being a club basketball player, is that there's always going to be somebody that's watching what you're doing. There's no game that goes unnoticed. So you have to make sure you're bringing your best each and every day on and off the court.
Everything we've read about you to this point, Mitch, is that you were a very high character guy and a really great locker room guy, which I think is awesome. Our team on our side of things, I know it's business, but like we absolutely preach culture and values. And I know that KU is very well known for having an unbelievable legacy as far as a program goes. Would you attribute how they are now, culture-wise, to the KU legacy, or is it more Bill Self?
I think that this is me speaking from what I know about Coach Self. I think he would never say that, oh, this is because of like how I've curated the legacy here at KU. But like Coach Self is the best college basketball coach right now. I think he one of the best curators of culture. He knows what Kansas is all about. He's always the guy that's like, oh, you'll never be the best basketball player to ever be here. You'll never be the best coach to ever be here, which I think Coach Self has a chance to be the best coach, but he'll never say that. But I think it's just so special that this is bigger than you. Kansas basketball is bigger than you, and it's all about what you can do to add to this and make it a better place than when you got here. So that's how he preaches it, and that's how all the guys buy, and that's what all the guys buy into.
So you mentioned, I mean, like what you just said right there is just a nice little snippet of that belief and the culture and the attitude that you had towards it. Because do the people that don't have that attitude, do they play? Do they last long?
I'd say that they play just because they usually have great skills, but those guys can turn into cancers on a team. Whereas you'll have one guy that makes it all about him, or you'll have one guy that you get in the locker room after a practice, he's like, oh man, those coaches don't know what they're talking about. What are they doing? Like, oh man, I'm leaving, or something like that. And you don't have everybody bought in the locker room, and that becomes a problem. Whereas if you guys have everybody that's bought in and you have strong leaders in your locker room, then you'll have a strong team that has a chance to play at the highest level and win some games.
Did you see any in your career, and it could be at KU, it could be along your stops, whether it be club ball or high school, where it's like a guy who just had a little bit more of a diva attitude, or a prima donna, just was above the values of the team and still got time, or did they have to like make some examples out of people?
I would say you see those everywhere in every facet of life, unfortunately, but you see those in basketball as well. I think with today's day and age, that's way more prevalent than it was even when I was in high school. Like it was more of like I know this sounds weird for me to be saying this, but like I think it's more prima donna-ish now, because you're going to have people that are catering to your every want, like, hey, we'll give you X amount to come here, like
all the NILs,
I think
era, if you will, that we're in.
I think that adds to it. Whereas in the past, it was more of a like, hey, what can you do for me? Like, what can the player do for the school? Now it's what can the school do for the player almost.
The leverage in that relationship changed, right?
Yeah,
so for
greatly.
the longest time, the universities had all the leverage. We have and I'm not talking about KU, just, bigger schools in general, we have all the power, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you change that leverage, and then a player's like, well, now I got it,
I think it's something that I could compare to like the NBA, like whereas you have the players on the team that are making way more than what the coaches are making. So like whenever you're talking about like,
you see more disrespect.
You do. And you can't have like, from like an organizational perspective, like Are you rather fire the coach who you're paying $1 million a year, or are you going to fire the guy that you're paying $26 million a year? Like it's hard. And I think that you're going to start to have some of those problems in college basketball where coaches have to demand more respect because players are more entitled.
Yeah.
When it comes to
I was going to say, you speak super highly of Bill Self, and basically since we've been talking to you today. What's the life lesson that you've learned from him that you feel like was the most impactful?
Oh, there's so many. I think like being there for 6 years and playing for Coach Self, just being around him and knowing how he demands a certain level of competing. Like he's taught me the difference. When I got to KU, I tried really hard, but I didn't exactly compete. And knowing the difference between trying hard and competing is something that impacts winning greatly.
How would you define that?
I think trying hard is as it sounds. You're trying hard, you're running fast, you're diving on the ground. That's great and all. And it's good to try hard. If you don't try hard, like trying hard is a prerequisite. You have to try hard. But competing is trying hard knowledge, like with the knowledge of what you need to do. And trying hard plus the knowledge gives you competing. And if you're competing, you have a chance to win.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something I hadn't really thought about, but it's like, you can't really compete if there's a gap in your skills, if there's a gap in your knowledge, it's like it doesn't really matter how hard you try because you can get, smoked by somebody that might be trying less hard but has just better skills and has
effort only gets you so far.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I don't want to bash on effort. I think effort's a really important thing. That's how I started my career at KU. Was like I was just going to try harder than the other guy. Like you can't try harder than me. But as I got older, I was able to compete more because I figured out the system. I knew what coach wanted, and I was able to kind of show younger guys like, hey, this is how coach expects you to compete.
In the game of basketball, I want to talk and kind of transition into your younger years. So you're 6'8", right? When did you finally get your growth spurt? When did you know I'm going to be good at this?
He wants to know when you could dunk.
I could dunk.
No.
My first dunk, I think, was the summer between my 6th and 7th grade year. So,
God.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff's still working on it. Maybe one day.
Kyle's still working on it.
Bro, I can get rim, dog. I can get my palm above rim.
Kyle tells people he's 5'12", dude. He can't dunk for shit.
I'm taller than you. You know this.
My basketball journey has been pretty cool, but like you said, height-wise, I was always really tall. Like I was taller than my teachers. I think I started in kindergarten or something like that. My mom would know better. But I was always a big kid. I never really had a crazy growth spurt or anything like that. For a while there, they thought I was going to be 7 foot, 7'1", and then I kind of stopped growing in 8th grade. And I was 6'8" and a half, 6'9".
Were you damn, not even 7 foot?
I remember I'd sprained my left wrist or something like that, and I was trying to block somebody's shot, and I caught it on the rim. And we went and got it x-rayed, and they're like, "Yep, your birth plates are closed." And I was like, "Your growth plates are closed." And I was like, "Dang it, 6'9". I made it work with what I had, but it would have been. I think
most dudes are just trying to get to 6 foot, brother. So
yeah.
You're lucky.
I think it could have been. I think it could have been maybe in the NBA if I was able to be 7'1".
Yeah,
sure.
It's pretty hard not to be.
Yeah.
I would say there's not a ratio of a lot of 7-footers anywhere else.
I think I read this stat I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the stats. All people that are over 7 foot in the United States, there's a 17% chance that if you're over 17 or 7 foot, you're going to be in the NBA or something like that.
Holy crap!
Which isn't that wild?
That is insane.
It's
crazy
a 17%
stat.
chance if you're over 7 foot, you're going to be in the NBA.
I think that shows you just how few 7-footers.
He's checking me right now. What if I'm just completely bogus on that?
Just let it roll.
Whichever podcast I listen to, that's on them.
That's a fact. Real stat. What do you got there? What are we seeing? 1 in 6, so even better stats.
Yeah, he's making me look good.
Even better percentage.
Let's go.
Yeah, bro. So
yes, they are tall. No, they do not play basketball.
You've got college football and college basketball that really rule NCAA sports as far as the money goes. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the recruiting process, basketball seems to be a sport where people are getting recruited at a much younger age, and their skills are developing at a much younger age. You mentioned playing with 23-year-olds in middle school. Mm-hmm. What man, it's like, how does that happen in the sense of, you know, when do you see, I guess, in basketball, the sport itself, when do you see the biggest jump in skills? Because there's just this era that, you know the story of Dennis Rodman?
Yeah.
And it's like he didn't start playing basketball until he's out of high school. And it's like, he's a Hall of Famer. And it's like, how does somebody hit a growth spurt at 19?
I think that there's
just
some
all of the
people,
spectrum.
yeah, some people have it, like, and some, like Dennis Rodman, like that guy had it. Like as soon as he tapped into basketball and started playing it, he knew like, hey, listen, I can play at the highest level. I can play in the NBA, and he obviously went to win a lot of NBA championships. But I think for me, like the biggest like jump in skill wise is when I got to high school and I realized that, hey, listen, you're competing with people that are older than you now, so you have to have better skills, because if you're not gonna like, your body just doesn't mature like a senior in high school versus a freshman in high school. There's a reason they're 15, 20 pounds heavier than you. Like, you have to make sure your skills are able to compete with guys that are bigger than you and faster and can jump higher. So that's where you go back towards your skills. Like, for me at least.
Does that playing field even out more in college?
I think there's definitely a big difference between a freshman in college as well and a senior in college. Like, it's almost like,
it just seems
like old man strength. You
physical maturity there.
A 24-year-old versus like, especially now with like like we talked about before, like being a sixth year. Like when I was my last year of college, I was 24 years old. Like, I was playing with guys that were 18 when they got to, like, they're 18 years old as a freshman, and I'm 24 years old. There's a big difference between that, and I think that that's something that needs to be spoken for.
Yeah.
So we're talking about your championship year last season. This is it ended in 2022, right? This is March of 2022. You're in a spot where, you guys are competing for a national title, obviously winning the national title. You have years prior to that where you guys get close, you guys have fun in the tournament. You guys are making the tournament every year. Mm-hmm. What was different about that 2022 squad? I
think we'd been through a lot. That group the majority of the core had been together for a long time with the additions of Remy, Jalen Coleman-Lands. But the other guys on that team had been around for a while. And if you look back at it, the year before, we completely underperformed in the NCAA tournament. We lost to USC by like 32, I think. And that was one of those things where after the game, coaches saying, like, we got to get guys in here that are more athletic, that can shoot the ball better, like basically poking all of us. Like, hey, like,
was that in the post game locker room talk?
He said that in the post game locker room talk, but I think he also said that to the media wise, like, hey, listen, we got to get more athletic, we got to get stronger, faster, jump higher, all that stuff. But I think that was more of a, hey, I'm going to motivate the guys that are here now. Or it worked out like
challenge
that.
You guys.
Yeah, he's going to challenge. It worked out to more of like a challenge to us, because the same core group of guys came back the next year and ended up winning a national championship. And that obviously has to do a lot with his coaching, because he's a magnificent coach. He knows the game, the ins and outs of the game, unlike anybody else I've ever seen. But at the same point in time, I think he challenged us, and he pushed the right buttons, because we were ready to roll that next year.
Dude, just tell me what it's like playing in like March Madness, one of the most beloved times of the year. I'm either losing a lot of money or making a lot of money. Brackets are busting. Like, tell me what it's like to play, during that time of year. Because
there's a palpable buzz around it. I think when you're a player in it, I think, like we talked about before, Jayhawks are a little, what's the word I'm looking for? We're
spoiled, maybe.
Spoiled, yes. We're definitely spoiled when it comes to that. We've been to, I think,
dude,
crazy amount in a row, but. Because other schools, like when you make it to March Madness, that's awesome.
I know. KU, it's like if you're out before, if you don't make it to Sweet 16, it's just like, what the hell is going on?
If you don't make it to the second weekend, then your season was
a bust.
Giant disappointment,
yeah. And I think that's something that we're spoiled about. But at the same point in time, like when you have the best talent and you have the best coach, you're expected to produce, and you're expected to make it to the second weekend, if not the third weekend. In terms of playing in March Madness, there's nothing quite like it. Like, nothing that I've experienced, at least. The fans, they're the best of the best fans travel to those locations, because you're going to have a bunch of different teams playing at one location. Say for the first weekend, you're going to have, I forget how many teams are there at the first weekend, but you're going to have a bunch of different teams there competing, and we're all staying in similar hotels. So you're walking past teams, going up and down the elevators with teams, and it's an ultimate competitor's environment, because everybody wants to win.
The fan bases are rowdy.
Let's be
They're
honest.
all
Are you
there.
talking shit on the elevator?
I'm not much talking shit on the elevator because the majority of the time the teams you're playing against, you're usually focused on the team you're playing against that game.
Yeah.
And not like you're not looking farther on because like we've seen in the past, like you can lose to anybody. in
Oh
March
yeah,
Madness.
there's upsets that first week.
All
of
the
the-
time.
Bucknell, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bucknell, that's a scary one.
A classic.
Yeah, Bucknell's scary. We don't want to let that happen. We don't want to let the Northern Iowa happen. Like stuff like that, we need to make sure we don't happen. But there's a palpable buzz around it because the best of the best fans from each one of those fan bases pay because it's not cheap.
expensive,
It's
yeah.
expensive. Then you think about it, you gotta get airfare, they gotta get hotels, they gotta get transportation, food in a different city. Like the best of the best fans travel to each location, and you're gonna have all these different fan bases with their best fans there, and it's gonna be wild.
Yeah.
Rowdy. And it's like, I mean, it's even like that at the conference tournament, let alone NCAA, right?
The conference tournament, I think, is special in terms of the Big 12 because Iowa State travels really well, Kansas travels really well. I mean, the rest of the Big 12 schools, they travel really well, and I think that's why Kansas City becomes such a vibrant environment in that time. And I think the Big 12 does a great job of making sure that it's like the perfect balance of great basketball and great fun.
Yeah.
With your history of the amount of games you've played, it's so awesome that you've been able to play in some unbelievable venues all over the country. And you've obviously got, a soft spot for Fieldhouse. I don't even want to, you can edit that any which way you want, but when you're at Allen Fieldhouse, like that's your spot.
Yeah.
But what other spots really stick out to you?
United Center in Chicago, like seeing Jordan up in the rafters, like that's really
Crazy.
Cool. Playing in Madison Square Garden is really, really cool.
Wow, man.
Like
that's awesome.
I went on.
Who'd you guys play in Madison Square Garden?
I've played there like 3 or 4 times, which is really like I don't take that for granted at all. Like it's a cool environment. You get to see so many different like the look to your left, there's a celebrity. Look to your right, there's a celebrity. Is a really cool thing. But I actually, speaking of Madison Square Garden, I went on one of my Final 5 schools when I was getting recruited was St. John's, and they play like half of their games in Madison Square Garden. So while I was on my visit to St. John's, they like gave us a behind the scenes tour.
Oh, that's a good hook
Madison
for them.
Square Garden, and like we were walking like. They walked us by the scale that Ali weighed in on before his boxing events in there. They showed us where they kept the elephants before the circus that used to happen inside Madison Square Garden. So like it's a super cool experience. Like, and for me, being able to see the behind the scenes of it and then play on that court was really, really cool.
That is cool.
We mentioned coaches earlier, and this is a fun topic, I think, because you mentioned the NBA is so different. Such a different, and the players are getting paid so much more than the coaches in that. And you have all this legacy in the college game. And in the NBA, there's just very few. I think comes to mind, obviously, Phil Jackson, Riley, But, like, outside of that, what is the difference, especially because you have friends that play in the NBA? What do they tell you that's different between working with an NBA coach versus a college coach? It just seems so much more lax.
Yeah, I think in college, especially when I was in college, it may be a little bit different now because, I'm not in it to experience it. But in college, the coaches can coach you more. Like they can actually get on you. They can hold you accountable to a higher level because you have a scholarship to that school. Like they've taken a chance on you to have you come to there. Whereas in the NBA, it's more of like, hey, listen, our GM and our owner liked this player in the draft, so we drafted him. So we're going to have to give him the minutes because he's getting paid millions and millions of dollars more than the coach. So find a way to make it work with this guy. So I think it's tough, and I think you've got some great talents coaching wise that are in the NBA, but some of the times it doesn't work out because they don't have the right pieces to fit their design.
That relationship between the GM and the coach probably matters a lot here too, then, huh?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think that you'll have. I think Greg Popovich has done a great job of making sure he. Am I good? Oh shoot, my mic.
No, you're good. Just got to turn it.
But I think Greg Popovich does a great job of making sure his teams are always set up. I know he's got new players now, and he's got new blood, so I think we can see him continue to dominate. I think he's gonna
longest tenured head coach in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have a great year this upcoming year. I want him to have a great year just because Devontae's on that team, and then they've got Wembanyama, so like they've got some cool pieces that make their team pretty special.
You mentioned Wembanyama. Do you see him ascending to being that player that everybody thinks he's going to be?
I think he has all the pieces too. I want him to stay healthy, because I think that's the biggest part of being a star almost, because you play 82 games a year. You have to be healthy. And I think if he can stay healthy and he impacts the game on both ends at such a high level that it's gonna truly throw a wrench into things when it comes to talking about who's the best player in the NBA.
Wild to see his skill.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, especially at that height. Like,
that's what I mean.
I think you look across the league, and you're starting to see a lot of those guys come out of Europe where they're like almost like unicorn, like different.
Yeah,
those guys are talented. They're big. They're
so much skill.
Yeah, so much skill.
Like big guys, for all of our listeners, like big guys used to just be known like, hey, just stand under the hoop.
Yeah.
And take up space.
Yeah, you're gonna hit people. You're gonna like take up space. You're gonna dunk the ball. But now you got guys that are 7'4" out on the wing that are mixing you up and hitting threes in your face. Like, I think that it's
unreal.
It speaks something to the European game. Having played over there the last 2 years, they're so much more like skill development focused as opposed to the amount of games you can play. Over here in the States, I feel like sometimes we get caught up in, hey, we need to play as many games as possible when you're growing up. Like when you're in high school, when you're in the summers during high school playing club ball, you're playing crazy amounts of game in a day. Like I remember most games I played in a day was like 7.
Yeah. Wow.
Like and guys over there, like they don't play games in the summer. They're working on their skills. They're working on lifting. They're working on their athleticism. So like it's one of those things that you're starting to see that focus come to fruition in the NBA with the guys they're bringing over.
Not to mention the Olympics and how competitive all these other countries are becoming.
Yeah, I need the USA to go over there and lay the smackdown this year, because I have been talking a lot of crap to some of my teammates over there because I think the USA needs to bring back the dream team.
The redeemed team edition 2.
Yeah,
right?
edition number 2.
You mentioned playing overseas and some of the guys giving you a bunch of crap for being from the United States. What's the reputation you're getting from guys that live in Belgium?
I wouldn't say they're like giving me crap in like a mean way or anything like that, but there's definitely some
stereotypes. Yeah, if you
some
will.
stereotypes that I think are held towards.
Let's go. What are they?
First
Cowboy.
off, I can't disagree. Like there's so like things I've realized having spent like the last 10 months over there. There's way less like fast food and like things over there. Like you have to like walk to it. Like you think about when these cities were built is prior to the car. So like they don't have parking lots out front of the store. You have to walk.
They got us there. Obesity in America's got to be way higher.
Well fed over here.
It's unfortunate because like I look over there and my wife and I were talking about this. You don't see it as much, and it's sad because I think that we as Americans can hold ourselves to a standard where we can make sure we're healthy. Like there's so much like your guys' business. There's so many different opportunities for us to take care of our bodies and to make sure we're working out. But sometimes I feel like we lose that because the ease of access to junk food, the ease of access to not going on a walk, like not going on a run, like stuff like that. It's so sad. Like I think we can hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Humans can have the tendency in nature to just take the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. And when you have it good for so long, right, you can decide to do the harder path. And obviously there's a lot of character traits and a lot of skills being built by doing the harder path. But unfortunately, so many are just going to take the easier path.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that play out, I think, over time.
Yeah. And I think having been over there, I've seen that it's something that I don't even know if they're doing it because they're consciously doing it. It's just not there for them. Like if there was as much fast food as there is here over there, I'm sure people would eat more fast food. It's just there's not.
You don't notice that the people over there were like more mentally resilient at all?
I would say in times there was, but also it's not like I imagine they're not gods either.
Yeah,
like
I'd imagine
they have their downfalls as well.
I'd imagine like in my head the stereotypes that exist of certain European countries is that they're kind of goofy in different ways, like they have certain belief systems that are kind of goofy, and that's probably not all of them, but like
there's times when I can see that. I think sometimes it's misunderstanding of what they're trying to portray. I think that Europeans look at Americans as like super prideful, which I think is something cool because I'm proud to be an American. I think that's really, really cool. And I think that they realize that that's a point of pride for us. But I had a great experience as far as like my teammates and people that I was around. They took me in with open arms and they treated me like one of their own, which was really cool.
Yeah, I think
prideful fat people.
I think there's being patriotic, and then I'm sure that unfortunately there's some people that swing it too far the other direction, and it comes across as maybe like more righteous or more what's the word I'm looking for, like superior in some capacity.
Yeah, like sometimes they can look at us as being like a little righteous. I think sometimes that comes across as well.
Sure. When you travel, in KU versus when you traveled when you were in Belgium, what were the travel accommodations like over there?
So
you mentioned chartered planes earlier.
Yeah. So our farthest game away in Belgium was like a 4.5 hour bus ride, and so we went up to like the top of Holland. Played a team called Den Helder. So like they're at the very tippy top of Holland, and it's only like 4.5 hours. So we bussed to everything while we were over there, which is definitely different than KU because we took a charter plane to literally everything. But the year before I played in Germany, and we would take buses like 12 hours.
Yikes.
And like hop off the bus and they're like, hey, lace them up. You got a game in 45 minutes. So like we would hop off a bus and play a game and then take a shower and they'd be like, yep, hop back on the bus.
Very much high school vibes.
Yeah, for sure. Which is it was a new experience, and all of the professional basketball I've been playing has been such a cool, different experience that I'm learning so much from it. But at the same point in time, sometimes you think back to KU and you're like,
You're like that.
maybe I miss it.
Xavier Worthy meme where he walks into the Chiefs like area and he's like, "Oh, this is Texas is way better."
So sometimes it's like that, but no, definitely playing at Kansas where you're chartering to every game. Where they're in the big planes, you have tons of leg room for the big guys, which is something I can appreciate. Whereas some of my teammates that are like 7 foot, like they can really appreciate it because getting on planes sometimes can be a little difficult.
That is, if you're 7 foot, you can't ride an economy plane. You cannot do it, right?
Being 6'9", like I'm really like squeezing to get into economy. But
I feel like I'm squeezing. I'm like 6 foot. I'm 6 foot.
Jesus, dude, you are not 6 foot.
It's like actually
on the program only.
Yeah,
this guy.
yeah. But it's really cool to travel, especially at Kansas. Like they do it. I know it's all over the country. There's a lot of charter for higher level programs, but at Kansas, it's just
if as Bill Self ever said, if you guys got upset, like we're not taking the plane back.
Bus.
We're taking the bus back, just like the team that drove here to beat us. Came here.
I don't think he's ever said that. Just because
probably wanted to.
He probably wanted to say that. There's a rumor one time that they were playing in Japan, and he might have told somebody that if we lose this game, you might swim back to the States. So I think he's got a good sense of humor when it comes to that stuff, but not coaches. Coach is a very realistic person.
Yeah, nice.
Speaking on charter planes, Caitlin Clark just recently did her. She was a part of a chartered plane, first one for a female team to get, and she caught a lot of flack from other players on it. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I follow that along on Twitter a little bit, or X as it is, but I see people talking about that and how there's been some.
I want to say it was Angel Reese, one of the other WNBA players, had a tweet and said something along the lines of just like, no bus, no charter. I don't care if you're in a charter flight or not. Like, we're going to stop you.
I think that stuff, quite honestly, like it's good. It's a good thing that the WNBA is getting more and more attention. I think that Caitlin Clark is bringing more eyes to it, which is a positive thing. You get more viewers, you can have more revenue, and then you have more revenue, you can pay the players more, which is something I think is how the WNBA is trending, and I hope it is.
I was going to say women's sports is absolutely growing. We have obviously the National Women's Soccer League, the KC Current here in Kansas City, which is blowing up and doing great, and their games are packed, which is exciting to see. Do you see that trend continuing? As far as the skills, like is there when you watch a WNBA game, are you impressed with the skills that you see? Do you feel like that's going to continue to trend in the right direction?
Whenever I watch like WNBA or women's basketball in college, like I'm always so impressed with how consistent the women are that are out there. Like they have pure shooting form. They have the moves to back it up. I think that the women's basketball and women's sports in general is in good hands, and I think that the new viewership is only going to make it better.
I don't disagree at all. I think it's exciting. It's been fun to watch.
It's definitely like before I had not watched a lot of it, and I've found myself watching a lot more of women's sports, which has been fun because I hadn't seen that market before.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with like when she started getting flack from people about it, it's a confusing thing because it's like you want more eyeballs on your sport. It's how you guys are going to get paid more money, you know?
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, she's only doing what she loves to do. She's playing basketball and she's doing it at the highest level. You realize the last person talking about how well she's doing is Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I think she's been playing unbelievably, and I think everyone else thinks she's been playing unbelievably, and she's more concerned about how her team's doing and whatnot. So I think that she catches a lot of flack that is undue.
Do you happen to know who she beat out for the most career points in NCAA?
Yeah. She Lynette Woodard, right?
Jackie Stiles.
So there was
Missouri State
from
alum.
Missouri State
Okay,
University.
there's one of the KU women's basketball players has like an outrageous amount of points, but it was before
A certain year.
Yeah, it was before a certain year, and they weren't NCAA or something like that.
Maybe a 3-point line or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was one of those things. But I think that any level of excellence in the sport needs to be recognized, and I think that Caitlin Clark is pushing the level of excellence higher and higher.
It's exciting, man. We were talking about NIL earlier. You were a part of that for your final season, and people, if you are not a strong follower of college sports, like this is just like cannot be understated. It is the most impactful thing that has happened to college sports, probably
Completely changed
in 100 years. I mean, like in 100 years. I mean, it's changed the entire. Now, does that stick around? Is that going to last? Do you believe? Because we have a lot of questions on the NIL situation, but like, first off, will it last?
I think that you look at they're trying to put more rules on it, but the more they try to put rules on it, I think the more that things get taken to court, and the courts say, "Hey, listen, you're not allowed to regulate that." So I think it's one of those things where it's going to be very hard for the NCAA to put more regulations on it. I think that it's probably a good thing that if they did, because it's like you said, the wild, wild west right now. I'm all for the guys making as much money as possible, guys and girls alike making as much money as possible. I think that they make these schools a lot of money. I think they make the NCAA a lot of money. So I think it's good that they can benefit off of it. But I also think that there's some things that take away from almost the purity of college athletics.
I couldn't agree more. It's the saddest part of it. You can't have one without the other sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think you start to look, and how do you look at a team, and how do you like really create like a relationship-based fandom of a team? Like when the team changes out changes so much.
You're such a unicorn. You played 6 years with the same team. It's just unheard of at this point.
Yeah, and I hope that there's guys that are on Kansas. I hope there's guys that are on the schools that are around the nation that people can attach to and really become fans of and have that relationship with. But I'm not sure how much that'll happen. I hope it happens more.
Going back, this is hard to say now, but let's say you're back to being a freshman. You get that call from Bill Self. Famously, you were there, you were playing a pickup game of basketball. And so if there was ever a reason to miss a call, it was because you were playing, which is great. But let's say you get a call from a different school. Let's just say an arbitrary school. Let's say like Iowa, just Iowa Hawkeyes, right? They offer you $100,000. Where do you go?
That it's one of those things where it's what if, but at the same point in time, like how do you, like at that age, you're thinking about it, you're 17 years old, a senior in high school, and you're getting offered life-changing type money. Like $100,000 is a lot of money, but there's guys out there today that are getting offered, like we talked about this prior,
10 plus million.
The football deal down at Florida. I think that's insane. Like as a 17-year-old, how do you go about it? Like you're making more than your parents are.
Well, it's just
and sometimes their career, which is crazy.
It's sad because it's like, most of these kids like to really deal with, that kind of money when you don't have the perspective to deal with it. It's like, really, they need an agent. Really, there should be like some kind of contracts involved. You know, you're talking about a serious business relationship that you're getting into with that kind of money. And it's like right now, you know, people are getting screwed over on both sides because there isn't like formal negotiations with these, you know, relationships that are being put in place.
I had talked about this a little bit prior with some of my friends, but like, you think you see guys in the NBA that go broke after they're done playing. I'm worried that sometimes you're going to have college athletes that create this lifestyle off of what they're making during the 4 years that they're in college, or the 5 years or 6 years, whatever it is. And they're going to come out of college and have an unrealistic expectation of what life is.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a way that schools can help them save their money. Schools can help them invest their money to be for some longevity.
Sound,
to be financially sound. And
did you guys have any of that help while you were in school?
Yeah, Kansas did a good job of it. Our coaches brought in some financial people to talk to us and whatnot. I think it was great for us, but also NIL was very new and it wasn't quite at the level I think that it is now, numbers wise. I think that there's so much money involved right now that there needs to be a way that guys can easily invest their money, or whether that be with like financial advisors or whatnot. But there needs to be a way to create financial longevity.
Talk to us about that call that you got, or you know the instruction from Coach Self whenever you were told about NIL. You said it was July 1st,
or I was July something. It was middle of July before my last year at KU. We were doing like a team camp. We were coaching some kids and whatnot, and we all got called into the locker room after. And they're like, "Hey, listen, tomorrow NIL starts. Any questions?" And we're all like, "What starts?"
Like what is NIL?
We can do what? And they're like, "Hey, you can make money off your name, image, and likeness." I'm like, "Well, how do we make money off our name, image, and likeness? Do I like go down to like the Burger King and be like, hey, you can post my face on the side of your..." You can
start that OnlyFans you'd been thinking about doing.
Stuff like that. Like, it's like, dude, like, what do I do? I have no idea what to do. And so it was kind of even more of a wild, wild west than it is now. I remember I was one of the first deals that happened. I partnered up with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, a local Kansas City company, and I did a deal with them, and it turned out to be one of my better deals that I had done while I was in college. Yeah. Got Junk.
Let's go. Yeah.
But
make that money.
Yeah, it was a great partnership for me. The guys over there, they do a great job. They did a great job of helping me like understand business as well.
Right.
Like I got to meet some very well, if it's the wrong word,
savvy maybe.
Yeah, savvy business people that had an idea of what they thought NIL might look like and how I could be prepared for it.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the paid partnerships and the you know what I mean, like being authentic, the hashtag ad.
Yeah.
And it being all on the up and up, which was just so for me, from a culture standpoint, it was so interesting to see like overnight, all of a sudden, you know, we have some really phenomenal, you know, youth athletes here in Kansas City area, and they've gone on to play sports in, you know, big colleges around the country. And to see some of those guys that, you know, were training in the gyms that we're friends with here, all of a sudden they're posing with Raising Cane's. You know, Raising Cane's, shout out them. They've been hitting up the most college athletes, I feel like, out of anybody.
Speak of the devil.
There you go.
No, I think Raising Cane's did a great job of getting into it early as well. I remember getting the message from them like, "Hey, you have any interest in it?" I'm like, "Dude, I love fried chicken."
You're like,
"Bro,
sign me up."
I don't want any paycheck. Just give me this card that gives me the free chicken strips.
I just want the chicken strips,
dude.
Did they give you like free chicken strips for a year or anything cool like that?
I probably should have tried to work that into the contract, but it was more of like a monetary type thing. But I would have, because I was at that point in time, I was still trying to gain more weight because I needed to be bigger to play the 5 in the Big 12. So I was eating Raising Cane's almost every dang day.
Dude, they give you like a gold card. How awesome would that be? Just flexing this. Free chicken strips anytime I want.
Yeah. MVP card from Raising Cane's.
Yeah. I love their business model. If I was going to get into food, just all I do is chicken strips. I love it.
It's easy. It's delicious, and they got the
So
the
good.
bread is so good.
Cane sauce.
All we got to
ketchup,
find is a
nothing
spot
else.
right next to Chick-fil-A where the overflow can come to our stores.
Yeah.
Our
there you
drive-thru is
go.
a lot smaller. You come right across the street. That's how they do it, man.
Yeah, but speaking of those NIL deals, like they came out of nowhere. Like we had no idea what was going to happen, and I think that I was able to do pretty well off of it because I would reach out to companies and say, hey, like, can we come up with an idea of how I can represent you and both of us can succeed here. I think that a lot of that now is being done by like the collectives. You see, like Kansas has a collective, Duke has a collective.
Describe what a collective is, please.
A collective is a group of usually it's like former university people, people that have been around the university, whether that be donors, whether that be ex administration, ex people that are involved with them, but they come together and create an organization that does a great job of reaching out to local businesses in the communities, even nationwide businesses where they can come up with deals for the players so they can bring them to the players.
For the team as a whole, or do these collectives make these individual deals as well?
I think it's all over from what I've seen. They bring deals to the entire team. They bring deals to guys individually. So I think it's something that we can look to and see. So how the game of NIL is growing.
So I want to hear your first. This is my favorite question I've been waiting to ask you this whole time. What was your first NIL deal that you heard? Not that you heard of from someone else, for example, that you were like, no shit, like, oh my god, I can't believe that this is a crazy number,
Crazy. Oh, numbers wise.
Yeah, it was just like, well, just one that blew your mind. You're just like, what?
I mean, it could be like, something that wasn't as crazy numbers wise, but you were just like, wow, I guess it's really stepping up into the.
Okay. I'll relate this more back to like my experience. I had no idea what my like market value was.
Sure.
So there was no, like, I didn't know like, hey,
what to ask for, right?
Yeah. Like if you want to post on Instagram with me, like to collab on Instagram, is it $50? Is it 5,000? Like there was no like template for how this is supposed to be done.
Yeah.
So like you would see guys across the country that are like, hey, listen, yeah, he posted for this and he made 10 grand. And you're like, so he posted on Twitter and made 10 grand? How's that work? Like that doesn't seem like, just from like going from making nothing to like now you're making 10 grand for a post. Like what? So I think that that's something that kind of shocked me at first. Is like, it's this valuable?
Does anybody stick out in your mind as far as a player goes that you heard maybe through the grapevine? Maybe it could be a rumor if it was real or not. But like during that era, your first one that was just like, this can't be serious.
I don't know if there's an individual player. I know that there's people that were making absurd amounts for posts just because how new it was. And not only did we not know what our market value was, the companies coming into it didn't know what the market value was as well. So I think that there are some players and some athletes that were able to like almost win one over on some companies. So I think that that kind of shocked me. Whether that be you're making 20 to 50 grand for a post or collaboration post, it just depends on how popular you are and how big your reach is. I can't remember a certain person that I was like, oh, what the heck? How did they make that? But I think now you look at people like the Livy Dunns of the world where they're making millions and millions of dollars in NIL
in a sport that usually got no traction. Not a lot of people are following female gymnastics.
Yeah, and now they're packed out gyms because she's there and she's being able to profit off of that, which I think it's the beauty of
that
NIL.
Is cool. Like the sports that don't have any like higher end earning potential ever. Mm-hmm. Like gymnastics, like the end of the road for like a gymnast is like maybe make it into the Olympics where you can make, quite a bit of money off endorsements. And I don't even know if it's quite a bit.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
it's all relative. Yeah.
That's the same way with a lot of sports in college athletics. But I think the things that you're taught while you're an athlete in college is what sets you up for the next step. Teamwork, perseverance, learning how to compete. I think that that's something that all college athletes come out with an edge against the rest of the working population.
Yeah.
We have there's, that's one of the best, I think, like, for as much as the NCAA is just like a crooked organization. We could have an entire podcast just based on like this doesn't make sense from the NCAA standpoint. But one of their best ads they ever did, I thought, was just, there are this many student athletes and just about all of us are about to go pro in something other than sports. And so it's just bringing it back to the education piece. And I think it's so awesome that you took advantage of the extra years you had for school to get yourself a master's degree. How has that helped you so far in your time outside of college?
It's given me an ability. It's given me a feeling of like safety almost, just because like, hey, listen, I can go chase my basketball dreams. I have a master's degree. I've got the degrees there for me when I'm ready to be done chasing my dream of playing professionally. And so it's allowed me to go do that. I think that the extra year was amazing because it allowed me to really focus on what I wanted to learn. I actually finished my master's after my 5th year. So my 6th year, I was able to take classes that I was actually interested in, like some financial management classes, stuff along those lines. And that was something that I think the 6th year can benefit athletes.
In 6 years of school, you also have the ability to take classes that are just for pure leisure, for fun, right? Mm-hmm. My last year of college, you have to hit a certain amount of credit hours, et cetera, to hit your degree. I only went to school for 4 years, but I was able to take handball because it was it's like the hours lined up perfectly with my schedule where I just was like, oh, I can just go to this class twice a week and play handball.
There was a class that a bunch of the athletes took one summer. We took golf.
Awesome.
And that was like, you think about it, like golf is a very prominent thing in the business world. Like what do people say? Majority of business deals are done on the golf course. So like, it's one of those things that at the time I was like, okay, we're learning how to play golf. Like I'd played golf before, but like I was able to get a little bit better at it to where I'm serviceable. If somebody asks me, hey, you want to come golfing with us? Like, yeah, I'm still not great at it.
Does a 6'9" guy have to get some serious crazy clubs?
Dude, that's my problem right now. I haven't made the investment of getting clubs custom made for myself just because I've been overseas and haven't been doing a ton of golf. But I've ventured to say once I'm done playing, I'll probably end up getting
a brand partnership is about to be born based on that sentence.
I need it.
Titleist. Get this.
Titleist. I need
get this man some custom clubs. He needs them. That's amazing. One of our most diehard Jayhawk fans we have, his son plays basketball right now in Springfield, Missouri, but he's one of our best friends. His name's Jeremy Meyer. He's been on the podcast as well.
I know Jeremy.
You know Jeremy?
Yeah, I know Jeremy. That's funny.
No kidding.
He's one of our. He's awesome. Yeah,
he's a good dude.
Owner
of CrossFit Springfield.
He's been on the podcast, and we've known him since we were kids. And his son's a phenomenal basketball player, but he's a young guy. Mm-hmm. But he has these questions for you.
I'm ready for this.
What is your funniest moment or memory as a Jayhawk? Just absolute hilarious moment for you.
Funniest moment or memory? I think some of my funniest moments were like kind of like terrifying while it was happening. I would have to say, like, this story's out there online. We were flying back from Stanford one time, and one of our engines on our plane went out. And so, like, literally, like, we roll up the window, I look out, and there's like a 100-foot-long jet of flames coming out of the engines. And
this doesn't sound funny.
The plane's like this, and then like it's shaking. And then I look back at one of my friends, and he goes, "Hey, at least we're gonna have a movie about us." And I was like, what? And I'm panicking. I'm like freaking out. And I was like, no way you just said that right now. And it was
you're like, hey, Marshall went down this way. They got a movie.
That's out of
oh god.
That's the row behind me. So we were in the row in front. And that was one of the scarier moments. And looking back now at it, like at that comment at that time, I was like, hey dude, like
that's some dry humor while you're about to die.
Freaking out. I'm like, all right, I got to call my mom. And they're like, hey, you're fine. Like once they righted the plane.
I was just going to ask, like what was the window of time between freaking out and like, we're going to be okay?
Probably like 2 minutes. There was a solid 2 minutes of good freak out in there. When the flight attendant runs down the aisle next to you, you're like, oh, they're not doing good right now, are we? And then one of the flight attendants asked one of my teammates, like, hey, did you throw something out the window? And because they were in the exit room, we're like, how the hell does that work? Like,
can you even do that?
I thought, like, are you being serious right now? Like, none of us were trying to joke around. We were all like, what the hell is going on right now? That was probably one of the funnier moments looking back on it now.
Totally. His next one is, who was physically the strongest Jayhawk teammate you ever played with also, and who was the toughest mentally?
That's a great question. Wow. Physically the strongest. I would say Ochai is incredibly strong. I think he was super strong. Frank Mason was really strong. I'm naming off guards right now too, because it's easier to move weight when you're at a different
shorter leverage
points.
points.
Shorter leverage points, yeah. But those two guys are super strong.
What about strong on the court? Like you wouldn't want to, you can't
like,
move him.
Oh, okay. Udoka Azubuike. He just does not move.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I was flexing so hard in this pick. Everything. I probably could have ripped that towel I had around my neck. But no, the guy in the middle, Udoka, he's
dead center, tallest one.
Yeah, tallest one. He is a strong dude.
Playing tight end somewhere.
He's like 6'11". He's playing for the Suns right now. But
Dear God.
That was after, this picture was taken after our boot camp, which is like a 2-week long process where you wake up at 6 a.m. and do like straight conditioning for an hour, and then you come back and do a basketball or a lift and then a basketball workout every single day for like 2 weeks straight. And it's kind of like where teams are made. Yeah. And that was after the completion of the last day, and it was a pretty. It's always a good experience whenever you finish boot camp.
Nothing builds a stronger bond, man, than that collective suffering.
Oh, 100%. I think that's why Kansas has been so good for so long. Is Coach Self has the recipe down for making sure guys are close and guys have that bond.
That recipe you just mentioned, this this 2-week long boot camp seems like it's going to be a fitting answer here. So it kind of answers this question, but. Jeremy's last one is, what is it about the culture within KU Hoops that makes the program so consistently successful?
Yeah, I think it has to do with how Coach Self conducts things, whether it be that boot camp, whether it be day-to-day practices. But there is a standard of success that he holds us all to. And I think the one thing that has been consistent since he's been at Kansas is obviously him. Like he is consistent in himself, but also how he coaches his players.
With your longevity here in the Kansas City area, have you been able to cross paths with some other incredible athletes from other sports? And if so, what was that like?
Yeah, no, being in Kansas City, it's been awesome, whether it be Chiefs guys, whether it be, the majority of them, the Chiefs guys that I've had the chance of crossing paths with. During COVID, I actually got a chance to work out with Tyreek Hill for like all the time we were doing COVID.
Where was the secret workout spot? That no one could talk about.
That no one could talk about. Bleep this out right now.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Was it?
Yeah.
He's been on the podcast.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, we were working out with and the man, he was able to keep us all in shape and healthy during that time. And it was like Tyreek, McCole Hardman, DeMarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, Ochai was there. So it was literally like 6 football players and 2 basketball players.
Nice.
When you surround yourself with those dudes, did you think in your head for a second, like, it'd be kind of fun to at least try?
I could do it.
The thing was like none of them wanted to play football. They were like, hey, we're playing
They
basketball.
want to play basketball.
Yeah.
All the football players were like, no, we're not doing anything football. We are going to play basketball. So we played basketball for
Where do you fall in the debate, dude?
On what?
Where do you fall in the debate?
Which debate?
About who would be more successful, NFL player going to the
This is a really big
NBA?
topic right now. I haven't got a chance to discuss this on podcast lately, or at all, actually. I think that there are great athletes that go both ways. I've listened to Will Compton's side of the things, and I can understand what he's saying. But I think that the guys he listed, he listed Keon Coleman off
Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State. He listed him off. And that guy, he's a great athlete. Don't get me wrong. He can play at the highest level, but the NBA is so much different than college basketball. Like playing at the highest level of college basketball is great. Okay, now take your best player, and now you're going to go be a role player in an NBA team.
Yeah,
I think that there's something to be said for that. I think you've seen guys come from college basketball and go to the NFL, whether that be
Antonio Gates.
Gates,
probably the most famous.
Tony Gonzalez,
Hall of Famer,
Tony Gonzalez did it.
When Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham, Rico Gathers from Baylor did it for a little bit. I'm trying to think of
Lots of tight ends.
Yeah, a lot of tight ends. You think about it, that's
Power forward.
That's probably the best position for it. And I think there could be more guys if they focused on training for that sport and spent a year or two training for that sport. But at the same point in time, I think once you've specialized in your sport, you're wanting to be a professional at that sport. I think majority of guys that grow up playing basketball, because you specialize pretty early now. I think you guys know that with youth athletes. They want you to know what you're doing before you get to high school. Like it's like, hey, either you're playing basketball or you're playing football, and if you want to be the best at what you're doing. So I think that the guys that have specialized in their sport want to be either in the NBA or in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mahomes' dad just recently said that Pat's favorite sport was basketball growing up, and that like he liked that more than baseball and football.
Do you remember those videos of him hooping at Lifetime?
Yeah,
like
man.
Spin moves and dunks. I'm like, dude, like maybe we get a.
He's so he's so unassuming, isn't he?
Yeah, it's wild. He's just a freak athlete. I mean, people like talk all the crap about, he shows up to
the dad bod and everything.
Yeah, the dad bod and whatnot. I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter what your body looks like if you can produce at the level he produces at. So I think going back to your question, I think that there's so many guys that do it from football to basketball, and there's so many guys that can do it from basketball to football. I think there's probably more that can do it from basketball to the NFL.
I agree with that, and I think what you said about like there just being a more small pool of guys. Like if you're elite in the NBA, I mean, dude, you're just
it's
such a small percentage. Yeah, and
even think about it, like it's like from a numbers perspective, how many guys are on a football team?
Yeah,
and how many guys are on a basketball team? Like it's just there's
50 and like 12.
Yeah,
whatever,
there's so many. There's so much less opportunity for you to be on a team in the NBA.
Yeah,
so I think that there's a ton of super high level players that are playing overseas in Europe, playing overseas in Asia, like that could be NBA players, but there's just not enough space in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. You know, the G League obviously has been put in place to try to help these athletes to give them more playing time. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the G League is the second most talented league?
No, I don't think so. I think the G League is really good. I think it's a good idea for people that want to stay in America and be here and grow their talent. But I think the second highest league is probably EuroLeague, just because there's guys that are coming straight out of the NBA and going there. The Panathinaikos that just won the EuroLeague, they've got guys on that team like Kendrick Nunn who played for the Heat. They're real NBA players that had success in the NBA that are playing on those teams. So I'd probably say EuroLeague.
Does the contracts match at all? I'm not familiar at all. Does the contracts get close? Like,
I mean,
if you're Nunn, are you making more money going overseas than staying? Because I remember that, my era, I'm 36 years old now. I remember Stephon Marbury being one of the first players to say, I'm actually just going to go play over in China and make more money.
Yeah, I think that people can make it's obviously changing now because over the past couple of years, the G League has been able to pay more for guys. But at the same point in time, they I don't think they can pay as much as a EuroLeague team can, and as some other leagues in Europe can.
Man, it's so interesting, man. There's so much. The dynamic of sports has changed so much with money and with honestly, it's all been helpful for the players, and I think that part's exciting. But as a fan, you get a little bummed out when your favorite players leave so fast over the dollars. And as a Chiefs fan here, we lose Tyreek because he wanted to be the highest paid wide receiver. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the long term of it, I think he'd go back and change that now.
Does Mahomes get an NBA team to Kansas City?
Dude, if there's anybody that can do it, you think about it, Mahomes is he transcends sports almost. Like people look at him and like, hey, he is one of the most popular. I think it's, what do you think? Like LeBron and then Mahomes. Yeah. Like with Brady not being in the NFL anymore, it's LeBron and Mahomes almost. So I think he has the draw to do it. I mean, I think he's shown that, hey, listen, Kansas City can be an attractive environment for a potential GOAT.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome.
Which would be awesome. I think that it's just Kansas basketball shows you how much people in the Midwest love their sports.
You already have a built-in fan base for basketball here.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about KU is that they would be fans of KU and they'd be fans of whatever NBA team they had in Kansas City as well. It's not like you're taking away from one for the other. I think they're going to show up for both, and I think that even if you had an NBA team, there's so many other fan bases that are close to this that are going to support that team as well.
For sure.
You wonder how we don't have a team at times, and you look at teams that, cities that don't support their teams nearly as well.
Yeah, I think that's some things that you look at the NBA and you're seeing arenas that aren't packed, and that gives you some pause. But like I said, I think Kansas has been so successful with basketball here in the Midwest, near Kansas City, that I think you almost have to take a chance, right? Like you take any team that wants to relocate here, I think that they would be successful.
Yeah,
I don't disagree at all, man. And back to the NBA kind of questions, these super teams have been built from the LeBron era of saying, let's just put some more and more talent on one team.
Mm-hmm.
You see teams that have done it and they've been consistently successful. Durant goes over to the Warriors and they start winning championships more so. But since then, I feel like it hasn't been working out nearly as well. Where do you feel like the future of the NBA roster building is going to go? Because they're still it seems like all the players are still trying to control it all as far as where they're going to go.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your previous question a little bit. I think once you have teams that build that camaraderie and build their chemistry, and you have the same guys, they're all, because everybody that's in the NBA is a super high level basketball player. They're all extremely talented. Once you have those guys that figure each other out and they figure out that, hey, this is what this guy likes to do, and this is the chemistry we need to win, then you're going to have teams like Boston. Like they have superstars, but at the same point in time, like they are successful without like having 4 superstars on the court at the same time, like a Golden State or anybody like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that there's something to be said for having chemistry.
I agree, man.
And it's hard to create chemistry with new guys every 10
short
seconds.
time frame.
As a pure fan of basketball, like that's what I want to see. I want to see that chemistry. I want to see the camaraderie, the teamwork, and everybody knowing what each other's strengths and weaknesses are and working together.
So speaking on what you said before, take the guys that like at KU, like the DeJuan Harrises, the KJ Adams, hopefully the young guys like Omarco and Jamari, guys that are there for more than 1 year now, value them and support them, because those are the guys that everybody deserves your sport at Kansas. Obviously, like, they're all Jayhawks. We all love them. We're all going to support them. But those guys that are thugging it out for 4, 5, 6 years, those guys, they deserve the nod of your cap.
They carry the culture from year to year.
Yeah,
a lot of respect for being loyal in a time where it's very easy not to be.
100%. And those guys are working their butts off, and I know it's not easy to stick somewhere where people are holding you the highest. Every time you go out and play, you're going to have people that are nitpicking how you're playing, and I think it's so commendable of them to go out there and do it year after year.
The amount of games you play, right? Huge jump when you went in and played in Europe, or not? Because I know in the NBA it's a massive jump, right? You're playing over double the amount of games.
Yeah, no, we ended up playing probably 45, 46 if you included the preseason games. So it was a little bit more, but not as crazy as the NBA where you're playing 82, which is insane.
How do you feel about the load management that they have going on?
I've seen people that have complained about that. I consider myself a little bit more like old school. I think it's super badass when you have guys that are like from the Michael Jordan era of when they're playing 82 games and they're playing their asses off. They're playing hard. Like people, I think today
it's a more physical game then.
Yeah, it's
too.
a more physical game. I think the load management is something that you're probably going to end up having to do because, like we said, if you want those star players like the Wembanyamas, they have to be healthy.
Yeah,
they're not going to be a star player from the bench nursing an injury that takes 6 months to get back from. So, I think that there's a sweet spot to it, and it's up to Adam Silver to figure out where that sweet spot is.
I agree, man.
Adam Silver, do you like the way that he's done things compared to David Stern? These are the two commissioners for our listeners. These are the former commissioner and the current commissioner of the NBA.
I think that there's things that we can take away from both. I think that Silver has done a good job at times, but I think there's certainly some things, and this is speaking on load management. I think that there needs to be more regulations around that for as far as like winning awards and like Joel Embiid couldn't have won that award this year because he didn't play enough games because he was nursing an injury. Like what if he was the most valuable player in the NBA? It's the MVP award. Like so, there's some things that need to be ironed out, but I think that he's done a good job so far.
As it sits today, stats completely, regardless of all those things, who do you feel is the most valuable player in the NBA
right now? And man, it's got to be. I think Jokic is just a different monster. I mean, he makes his team better, passing, scoring, defensively. Like he's one of those guys that I look at and I'm like, he may not look the part of being the MVP of the NBA, but he's been the MVP of the NBA the last two years, right?
Mm-hmm. Was he this year? I think he's this year. He was this year.
Wasn't he this year? Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was, but I think Jokic is far and away the best player in the NBA right now.
And I feel like he's more of the big fundamental than the big fundamental in Tim Duncan.
Yeah,
what's
unbelievable.
What's your opinion on the best KU player of all time?
Best KU player of all time, man. It's hard to beat Wilt. It is really hard to beat Wilt.
That's like instead of who is the second best player?
I know. I wanted to be like, well, he's like one of the best players of all time.
Lou Alcindor.
Yeah. No, but that's the kind of thing is we've talked about that, and Coach Self has talked about that before. The best college player outside of Wilt at Kansas, Danny Manning was really, really good. Danny the Miracles, that's a guy that carried him to a national championship. I think Ocha had a great career at Kansas, ended it off with a national championship. There's something to be said for that. But there's just so many dang talented guys that have come through there that have given their all to Kansas, and I think it'd be rude for me to not.
Yeah, you have a KU podcast. I'm not trying to get.
No,
friends are going to be chewing you out.
Bro, I'm not coming on your podcast.
You said I wasn't the best.
I got to correct myself. I said Lou Alcindor. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah,
Kareem Abdul. Totally different, tall guy.
Yeah, really good at basketball though.
Unbelievably good at basketball.
All right, man. So we at the end of every podcast, we ask the most important question of all, and since you are a Kansas Cityan, you probably got a pretty good answer for us. What is the best barbecue in all of Kansas City?
Man, I am a huge Q39 person. I really like Q39. Their burn-ins are spectacular. I went there literally 2 days ago. So
good.
Did you get the Mr. Burns sandwich?
No, I got the brisket and burn-ins. But
2 meat plate?
Yeah. I was going to go for more, but I had literally just had a meal before we went because I didn't know we were going. But my mother-in-law and father-in-law asked my wife and I, they're like, wait, what do you guys want to do for dinner since you've been back? Like, what have you been craving? And I was like, give me some Q39, baby.
Barbecue.
Yeah, man. When you came up from Arizona, I would have loved to hear, all right, I'm getting back to Kansas City roots here. I'm going to hit all my spots.
Dude, Arthur Bryant's, Gates, I was doing them all. Like, that's one thing that whenever I have friends that come visit in Kansas City, I'm like, hey, I know. Don't plan out any dinners. Yeah. I got this. We're going to go hit every single spot, and you can tell me what you like the most.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Hey, we really appreciate your time. It's been so wonderful getting to know you.
Thank you, man. Story. Yeah.
Thanks for sitting down with us
I appreciate
today,
you guys. This place is really cool, and there's a lot of great things coming for you guys.
Yeah. Awesome. Plug your podcast. Where can people check out your podcast?
Rock Chalk Unplugged. Tap in.
Let's go, man.
Rock Chalk Unplugged. And then what's your personal Instagram for everybody?
My Instagram is Mitch Lightfoot. I think I have just that, right? I don't know.
One underscore.
Mitch _Lightfoot 44.
Once you type in Mitch _Lightfoot, it should take care of itself.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys, and this has been a great time. I really enjoyed it.
We'll bring you back on, man.
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
your
I'd
time.
love to.
Yeah, I was looking at your.
Nice job, pal.
Thanks, buddy. I was looking at your page earlier.